Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of The Practice. This show is an unrehearsed look into my workflow. I'm Stuart. I'm a 3D artist, illustrator, designer, and your pal, and I'm excited to have you back for another episode this week. Episode 179, question of the week this week is, can you recommend a good creative podcast or vlog? I'm always in the need for, some creative content, especially stuff that's episodic. I listen to a lot of podcasts and follow a handful of YouTube channels. Surprisingly, not that many creative ones though. And I'd like to sort of compare what I do to what some other successful, popular, or well-liked folks are creating out there. So, can you recommend a creative podcast or vlog or other episodic content that's worth checking out? So let's hop into it. I did a quick little sketch for this type of piece. The sort of idea I have in mind, and posted it over on my Instagram stories. I think you should go follow me on Instagram at DLGNCE, if at all possible. I'm always posting new content up there and stuff related to the show. So go check that out. And now I have sort of a simple idea for what I want to create this week. I think the geometry is going to be fairly simple, but I think tweaking it and getting it sort of well executed might be a bit tricky. So let's see what we can do there. This may look like a bunch of nonsense at the moment. Let's go back a little, actually. Okay, so that's a start. That looks terrible, obviously. What's up, Doreen? How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Question of the week. There it is if you're just tuning in. All right. So I made the mistake of doing this in the default view instead of like one of the side or front views. So I'm just going to quickly reorient that best of my ability. It's not going to be perfect. That's okay. And now I need to sort of pull things forward and push them back to get a bit of depth here. This might sort of take a minute to make sense of. Actually, it might make it a bit easier if I just go ahead and throw this thing in a sweep, which is what I'm going to, this was the plan to do that anyway, so. Yeah, that's going to be helpful. Actually, it's going to make it a bit trickier to make my selections, but that's all right. Nice, thanks, Doreen. I like Creative Pep Talk. I really like Andy J Pizza, as he likes to go by. I really dig his illustration style. It's really beautiful. Do you find his stuff useful, Doreen? Nice. Yeah, thanks for that input, Doreen. I agree. It is useful to see that artists on the highest level still have, confidence issues, or they're not quite sure what steps they should take next, or, imposter syndrome, I think. It's one of the things he talks about somewhat frequently. Those are all things that I've experienced as well. What's up, Ramel? Thanks for tuning in and for the kind words. I think master might be a little bit generous, but I appreciate it nonetheless. So today I'm going to be working on a character design that is basically this like really twisted, tangled serpent. And once I get the composition sorted out with how this body's going to look, then I'm going to add a little face and perhaps a few background elements. The idea is really to just have this twisted serpent sort of look. In fact, if you go on my Instagram page right now and look at my stories, you can see this sketch I did. It's kind of a goofy little sketch. For those of you just tuning in, I am soliciting recommendations for creative podcasts or vlogs. I'd like to listen to some more. Awesome. Are you going to follow along and make what we're making today, or are you just going to sort of do your own thing and watch and listen in the background? I'd love to hear that people see this and decide to get some work done for themselves too. That's like sort of the whole idea. Get people fired up, get people inspired, get them productive and staying that way. Nice. All right, this is getting somewhere. Let's actually add some occlusion real quick. Just sort of take a peek of what we're looking at here. It'll add some quick lighting as well. Oh, I see. It's funny because I'm seeing your comment now, but yes, sometimes when there's profanity, or if you add links, it automatically files them as spam. Yeah, that's a good question, Doreen. I think you got to set time aside for it. Kind of no excuses sort of a thing. I think the older I've gotten, the better I've become at just kind of sticking to a schedule like that. And we sort of become our habits. If you want to be the type of person who makes lots of really good art, then you just have to prioritize that, or you're never going to be that person, right? Yeah, that is the hardest thing. All right, this is starting to look kind of cool. Feeling it. Curves are coming together. Maybe, let's see, a few more tweaks here. Yeah, exactly. Make it a habit. Thanks for tuning in. I can't read your name, but I feel like you've tuned in past episodes, so welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. All right, everyone just tuning in. Check out the question of the week. I'm soliciting recommendations for creative podcasts or vlogs, or really any sort of episodic creative content. The Creative Pep Talk has been thrown out there by Doreen, which I know is a super popular one that I have listened to a handful of times. And it seems like there's a big community, or a large appetite, I should say, for creative content. But I haven't run into that much, I guess, that's super high quality, or maybe I just haven't been looking in the right places. But yeah, I would love to hear about some more. And now I gotta make some adjustments here. That's not right. That's a bit wonky. There we go. No, I'm going back. I don't think that improved anything. Maybe I just didn't get it right. Let's try it again. All right. Are we sufficiently tangled yet? I don't know. The tail's a little weird. What's up? Milk surface. What's up, bud? Very spaghetti. Soon it's going to be a cool serpent kind of deal. Eventually, if I can ever get it right. Getting there. So I guess it's also worth noting, as a side note, this weekend, barring any unforeseen incidents, I will be crossing off a bit of a milestone, a bit of a sort of bucket list item for myself. I'm going to be running my first marathon. I'll be running in the Austin Marathon this Sunday. That'll be the furthest I've ever run. I've run 3 half marathons before, but I've never run a full marathon. I've always wanted to. It's been sort of a life goal of mine. And if I can get to that starting line healthy by this weekend, then I will be running and completing my very first marathon. So wish me luck. All right. Let's start working on a little face. I'm trying to think about the best way to do this because I want to maintain the flexibility here in case I need to tweak the position of any of this stuff, but I want to be able to sculpt a little face. So why don't I do this? That's true milk surface. So let's try this actually. I'm going to pull back 2% on the start growth here. Then I'm going to duplicate this. Go all the way forward. Oops. Then I'm going to go back just 3%. So I have 2 separate surfaces here. I'm going to make a copy of this dude and put him in a null labeled off, which just sort of becomes a backup folder for me in the file. And then this dude, I'm going to make editable. I'm going to go into sculpting over here. I'm actually going to volume mesh this because this isn't a great mesh to sculpt on. Boom. Let's see how smooth that is. Yeah, so you can't really even see the transition between the two, which is exactly what I wanted. Now I can grab this guy and sculpt him a bit. And in fact, why don't I pop over to objects and make a copy of that dude as well. I'm not sure if it's going to be a snake so much as it is kind of a dragony serpent sort of fella. We'll see how it goes, though. Whoops. Thank you. Thank you, Warsaw. I think you have nice content. Oh, there we go. Thanks for the question, Romel. I have never used Keyshot, so I am unfortunately unable really to help you there. A lot of times proprietary Cinema 4D textures won't, let's see, compact mode. Nope, that's too small. Okay. It's not annoying. I appreciate the question. So if it's a material you generated in Cinema 4D, there's a good chance that it's not going to port out nicely to other programs. What you can do though is bake the texture, so it will make it like a UV, like a UV'd, just like a separate image file that has a UV that relates to the object you're making yourself, and it'll save it out sort of as an individual PNG or JPEG file. I would tell you to look up baking textures. There's a texture tag actually that allows you to bake UVs. It can be a little finicky, and depending on the complexity of the material, you'll get varying results. But yeah, and also mesh deformers that doesn't show its animation. That's a similar thing. It might be a proprietary Cinema 4D style procedural animation, so that's not going to port over. What you'd have to do is sort of bake it out. I think you can usually bake animations like in point mode, something like that. But again, I've never used Keyshot, so I don't know exactly what the issues you're running into are. Yeah. So here's a little face we're working on. That's actually kind of fun. I'm liking the way that's coming together. Let's add some spheres. Some eyeballs. I'm not using a symmetry object here. Just kind of doing things by hand. Oops. Let's see. Yeah, I think Octane is. I mean, I've never used Octane either. It's a rendering engine that people do really love. So that might be the move. I think people do get some pretty realistic renderings from it. Right. Okay. Well, you got to play to your strengths, and you got to use the software that your computer will support. But you can usually make cool stuff with very, very simple tools. So good luck to you. Sorry I couldn't be more of a help specific to your question. So this little serpenty guy. Kind of wish his head was at a slightly different angle. Yeah, I get nice results with cinema, just in the most simple, straight up way myself. So I find myself just using that a lot. Yeah. Right. Well, can you get away without using physical or global illumination or ambient occlusion? I mean, sometimes you can fake some of that and get really nice results without using all that. Let's see. All right, so I kind of think I want to make antlers for this guy. So let's hold off on textures, actually. I'm going to start just in a fresh file, I think. You know what? I'm going to use sweeps. And I'm not going to make the same mistake I made last time. I'm going to go from the front perspective, so that way this bit of geometry isn't angled in a funny way. All right. So this is probably going to need some adjustment, but let's get it in there. You're welcome. Thanks for the question and thanks for tuning in. Now in this case, I am going to use a symmetry object, but I'll just have to position that symmetry object kind of by hand, which won't be too bad. It's Tangle Boy. All right, let's see what we got here. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure if we need these guys. I'm going to turn them off for now. Maybe kind of hint at a little nose here. Ah, your English is good, man. Thanks for the comment. Oops. I do not like that nose business. Hopefully we've got enough undos left. We do not. Shoot. Well, there aren't big deformations, so I'm just going to use the smooth tool. Just smooth it out, kind of draw it back in, shoot. and not super symmetrical. That's all right. All right, I hope I didn't mess this up too much. I kind of did. I was thinking about adding a snake tongue. I can make it long and curly to sort of match with the rest of the piece. Better. Not perfect though. Kind of lumpy. Thank you. Yeah, I think the horns are fun. They add a lot. That's better. All right, let's start playing with a little color here. Thanks, guys. Nathan, thanks for joining us again. Jessica, muchas gracias. Wondering if this yellowed a bit much, though. I might want to go a little paler. Oh man, that new light angle really shows off how crappy that nose looks. Dang it. I'm just using standard GI at the moment. I could try. Actually, no, I'm not. That's funny. I haven't even turned GI on yet. So let's try that. That's probably why our subsurface scattering isn't looking that great yet. I've turned things down to preview and low. Let's see what kind of an effect that has in the lighting. It's certainly going to allow the light to penetrate a bit deeper into the model, and I bet we won't have areas that are quite so dark in the shadow here. But we will have much longer render times. Right now I'm just using an area light and a spotlight. Now, I'm going to try a little something. It may or may not work. So I just made a copy of this basic body material. What I'm going to do is go to the diffusion channel and add tile surface. You'd be like, oh, that checkerboard is weird. That's probably not what you want. And you'd be right. That's not what I want. But what I do want is scales 1 or 2. Let's see. 1 is fine. Actually, what we should probably do is make the grout white and the scales a darker color. Let's actually do a test. I'm not positive the scales are going to show up like that. This is where having 2 separate pieces of geometry makes it very, very tricky to match up a pattern like this. I'm thinking this is going to be too complex for our purposes. I'm going to go back to the other material for the time being. I'm going to experiment with the lighting a little bit more too. Let's see if I can't aim it at dude's head. Yeah, that's not, I mean, I guess what I could do, let's try this one more time. If I add that, just modify this to be tiny because it's such a long object, that's actually pretty good. Yeah, exactly. Got that snake action going on. And this, I mean, this looks pretty cool. The scales. Let's make them much more subtle though. Yeah, and you know, one thing I'm noticing from this, even though I don't generally like it, but the contrast between the light background and the dark snake is pretty nice. So what I should probably do, just go darker on this boy. Hmm. I'm going to just try and fade this out here. Is there something interesting about having the head be without scales? And I think making the scales flow over these smooth mouth parts is just going to be a nightmare. So I just am throwing these scales into a layer. I'm going to throw a gradient on there. Let's see. This presents a problem because it's actually scaled so many times, tiled so many times along the serpent's body. So that means what I need to do is turn this back to 100. And then turn the scale down here. This does it within the channel itself. What you can do here, this is a trick I learned recently, is if you go into editor on this stack of stuff for stack of channels for the material, you can set up or down the preview size of the texture, which can be useful in this case because it was previewing it at too low a resolution for me to see the detail that I was working on. Okay. Sometimes mixing shaders like this can sort of do my head in, and I need to try and remember which color is going to remove and which color, or which end of the alpha spectrum, I should say. Okay, so I think this is it actually. Let's check it out. So now we're getting a fading away. Let's just test this actually. Actually, you know what? No, I'm just going to render it. I'm getting some bad tiling there. And that's not working either. So let's try this. Still not working. We're getting some Z fighting here. And that's because I think there is the subsurface scattering. Huh. One last try. And I can still see it just a little bit. It's not too bad. I had the colors wrong on the light. I had the yellow light coming from behind and the blue light up front. And what I actually wanted to do was have the reverse of that. So I just swap the colors. We'll see what we get here. Thug War, what up? Thanks, man. Whoops. I'm going to open this light up just a little bit. Somehow that looks worse. I could throw the whole thing inside of a mesh object. I have the feeling that the UVs are going to go to hell. Let's try it anyway. Oh man, all the intersections, it doesn't like it. Ah, screw it. I'm not dealing with that. Yeah, nice, man. Good for you, Thug War. Get after it. It's good to set goals for yourself. I've been doing a similar thing. The practice this show is like, that's not, I mean, I couldn't quite commit to daily videos, so I do it weekly, but I spend several hours doing it, and it's completely unrehearsed. So it's not exactly the same thing, but it's a challenge to myself, that's for sure. So I'm going to live with this and just take it out in post. I'm going to make just a couple more tweaks and get it close. Maybe add a few additional elements, but maybe not. think I was able to just line up the seam there, just using the scale. I am pasting in to the reflection mask channel, right in the default specular here, the same scale map from the diffusion channel. So what that should do is interrupt the specular highlights that I just bumped up here and create little scaly patterns in them. And this color range is starting to feel a bit better for me. Now, sometimes big speculars feel kind of cheesy. Yeah, and I think this is a bit too far. I brought it down just a bit. I actually did add some scales to the dragon. Maybe you can't see it, depending on the size of your monitor, device, or whatever. But yeah. I think the last thing I need, well, let's check it out. Let's try it out, is maybe a little bit of a fill light. So I'm going to add a sky object, make a new material, just make a simple gradient channel for the sky. Put it, I think if I just put this beneath the background should show up in the rendering. Let's see. Let's test that theory actually. Nope, I was wrong. So I'll just add a compositing tag to it real quick. Sky objects should come with compositing tags on them. I feel like I'm still looking at it. Oh, it's because I put it on the light, of course. All right, let's try that again. There we go. that fill light is bringing a little bit more luminance to these dark shadowed areas, which is what I wanted. So that's good. This is getting there. I didn't mean to add that there. I want to add it to the reflection channel just to darken this up a bit. I want to get those eyes a little darker. Yeah, that's better. This kind of broad, softer diffusion is working much better for me. It gives him more of a waxy feel. And what's the last thing I was going to do? Oh, I want to bring more brightness to these horns and teeth. Well, thanks, Ali. Appreciate you tuning in. Getting there. All right, one more test, and I think I'll be ready to push out the final. Nice, I dig it. Cool. So let's push out a final. Yeah, I was off ever so slightly on these scales. I'm going to live with it. Don't tell anybody, okay? This is a fun exercise in simplicity. The last handful of episodes, I've really gone all in with lots of objects and little details, and actually lots of post-process sketching kind of stuff, adding little details as digital paint over the model, or over the rendering, I should say, which has been fun. But today we just really focused on one object. There's hardly any geometry really. It's just kind of this one sweep with a little sculpted thing and a handful of additional objects. Fairly simple in terms of the types of models we often create, but really rewarding and kind of fun. And actually, the simplicity sort of demands an attention to detail and refinement in a way that kind of makes it tricky, a little bit harder than a typical thing. Sometimes you can hide in all the details and complexity. Cool. So in terms of retouching, I think I'm going to keep it fairly simple this week and just really play with contrast just a bit. Maybe I'll add a touch of noise. Pushing a little bit more contrast into the image. How similar is my work to my practice? Pretty similar. I mean, most of what I do is creating illustrations in Cinema 4D. So fairly similar in that regard. So I'm gonna just copy this and then just use the stamp tool. It wasn't always that way. I was working for an agency doing more graphic design types of stuff for a good, most of my early years in my career, probably the first, decade. I can say definitely the first decade of my career. I wasn't doing, really much illustration at all. Well, maybe that's not fair. I did plenty of work on the side, and did a lot of personal work at first when I was sort of figuring out, gosh, it sounds cheesy to say, but kind of what my voice was going to be, the type of what type of work I actually wanted to make, and also developing the skills that would make me good enough that I could strike out on my own and focus solely on illustration stuff. So it definitely it was a long time coming. Whoops. It's a bit of a pain, but I am kind of cheating here just by, well, maybe it's not cheating, but doing this in post. Whatever. I didn't feel like, I wanted the scales. I didn't feel like, merging those two pieces of geometry or like doing any retopo work. It was just going to be a giant pain in the butt. And with, 5 minutes of photoshopping, I can sort of resolve that, which can be worthwhile. All right, cool. That could be a tough position, Ramel, or Ramel. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name accurately. But I sort of found myself not exactly doing what I wanted to be doing. You just got to be able to take the lessons from it that you can, I guess. I was working a lot in the exhibit field, like doing a lot of events and trade shows, and we were doing, event marketing. And it wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing. But I was able to take some lessons from it. There were some good designers that I worked with, and I learned, a little bit about running a business, and I learned a lot about presenting work and things like that. So just use it as an excuse if you can to continue developing your eye. And then keep doing what you want to do on the side. That's a big question, man. I can't answer that for you, especially when there's, yeah, I mean, try to mix both. There's nothing wrong with mixing. When when you're thinking about, the amount of money you're going to spend on an education and devoting all those years and doing all that stuff, then I really, that's advice I can't give you. You got to just take a moment and really think through the decisions you're going to make. But I'd say understand that what you study in university does not by any means dictate the course of your life. So if you're in a program and you're learning things, it's not the end of the world to keep doing that. And then, understand that life can go in a lot of directions that you don't necessarily anticipate. When I was in school, I knew I wanted to do visual arts, but I did graphic design, and, it wasn't the passion of all passions. But I took a lot from it. And at that point, I didn't learn anything about 3D design. I had no idea really what I wanted to be doing. I wish I'd leaned more into illustration and fine art. But, if you keep working on and focus your intentions on the types of things you want to make, I think eventually you can bring your career there. There's a short way to sort of sum it up here. But I'm at the point now where I think I'm ready to call this a finished exercise, a finished piece for the week. Fun little serpent dude, all squirmed around and tangled up in himself. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you want to keep up with me and the work that I'm doing, hit me up on DLGNCE on Instagram and the other social medias. New videos every Tuesday. If you found this useful, then please share it with a pal. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to drop a comment in the section below. Subscribe, like I said, for new videos every Tuesday. And until next week, this is Stuart saying goodbye. Later, gang. Thanks.